possible signs of life found on Venus. Recently, an international group of scientists released a paper that has caused great excitement around the world. According to the scientists, possible signs of life may have been found right in our solar system. The paper was written by a team of astronomers from the United Kingdom, the United States, and Japan. They used the powerful radio telescopes in Hawaii and Chile to study the composition of Venus, the second planet from the Sun. During their investigation, they detected traces of gas called phosphine. The gas was observed in clouds at about 50 kilometers above the planet's surface, and the concentration was relatively low. The scientists were excited because on Earth, phosphine is associated with life. The gas is created by certain microbes that live in oxygen-free environments. It is not found naturally in any other context, though it can be made artificially. This is important because, if it is phosphine, and if it is life, it means that we are not alone, said Clara Sao Silva, a co-author of the paper. However, the scientists emphasize that the source of the phosphine has not been ascertained yet. Also, they pointed out that the chance of extraterrestrial life on Venus is very slim. Indeed, as the hottest planet in the solar system, Venus is inhospitable to life in many ways. The temperature on the surface reaches over 450 degrees Celsius, though it is much cooler in the clouds high above the surface where the phosphine was detected. However, the clouds are mostly composed of sulfuric acid, which is usually deadly to living organisms. Nevertheless, the discovery is intriguing because it is still the first possible signs of life in our solar system. Already, NASA and other space agencies are making plans to send probes to Venus to take a closer look.
Drive-in haunted house opens. Have you heard of drive-in movie theaters or drive-in restaurants? Now, people who love chills and thrills can try a drive-in haunted house. Recently, a company opened this unusual haunted house in Tokyo. It was to celebrate the spooky season, which is summer in that country. The scary experience takes place in a garage full of zombies. Guests park their car in the garage and wait. The garage door closes and everything goes pitch black. Then, a terrifying voice on the radio tells a scary story. Suddenly, zombies come out of the darkness. They shake the car and scratch at the windows in an attempt to reach their human victims. Guests say they love the spine-chilling experience. Also, the activity allows everyone to practice social distancing so people can stay safe while screaming in fright.
Celebrities as politicians. In political elections, there are candidates from all walks of life. Sometimes, you may even find famous singers, actors, or athletes running to become mayors, governors, or even presidents. In the past, celebrities in various countries have been elected to important positions and had long careers as politicians. Some people are in favor of having celebrities becoming politicians. They say that for better or worse, people have a tendency to pay attention to celebrities. Fans will listen more closely when celebrities talk about the importance of certain issues. So, These celebrities can use this popularity to not only get elected, but also make positive political changes once they are in office. Also, supporters of celebrity politicians say that their experiences can help them to become capable lawmakers. Celebrities travel around the world for their job and interact with all different kinds of people. This worldliness can give them the ability to see both sides of the story and empathize with others. It is also a unique perspective that normal politicians would not have. Others, however, say that celebrities are taking advantage of their fame and popularity by running for office. These critics say that people can get confused by seeing their favorite entertainer or athlete in a political race. Some voters then can mistakenly attribute knowledge and wisdom to these candidates just because they seem so familiar. Furthermore, these critics say that some celebrity politicians are not ready to handle the reality of being a public servant. They may, of course, enjoy the excitement of winning an election. Afterwards, however, they may prove to be underqualified to hold such an important position. So, these critics argue it is better to leave the job of politics and governance to the experts.
Tech firm plans space hotel. Have you ever considered spending a night or more in outer space? In the near future, you might be able to do this thanks to a revolutionary new hotel. An American technology company called Orionspan is currently building the world's first space hotel. Named Aurora Station, this luxury hotel will orbit Earth around 320 kilometers above our planet's surface. It will have enough space to accommodate 4 tourists and 2 crew members. After completing a 3-month training program, the tourists will be allowed to stay at the hotel for 12 days at a time. During their stay, they will enjoy various activities and scientific research programs, including growing their own food. They will keep in touch with their friends and families on Earth by using the hotel's high-speed internet. They will also be able to watch the sun rise and set over the Earth about 16 times each day. Unfortunately, at least for the time being, the trip will be available only to some of the world's wealthiest individuals. The CEO of Orionspan is thrilled to be able to give people the opportunity to have the trip of a lifetime. Aurora Station is ushering in a new era of space travel, setting the bar higher than ever, the CEO said. No speed limit for Autobahn. Most roads around the world have speed limits or restrictions on how fast a car can go. This is not the case, however, for large parts of the German Autobahn. The German Autobahn is a large network of highways that stretch about 13,000 kilometers across the country. They help Germans to quickly get wherever they need to go. Although around 70% of the Autobahn does not have an official speed limit, the highway system does have suggestions for how fast drivers should go. These suggestions are meant to keep drivers and passengers safe. The Autobahn also has speed limits in places that are particularly dangerous, such as construction zones. However, on the parts that do not have a speed limit, drivers are free to go as fast as they want, even if that means going over 250 kilometers an hour. Recently, some German officials challenged the lack of speed limits on the Autobahn. They argued that the entire network should have an official speed limit of around 130 kilometers per hour. They believed that this would make the roadways safer and reduce pollution. The German government considered their proposal, but ultimately rejected it. Government officials said that there were better ways to fight pollution and climate change. Some Germans were disappointed by the government's decisions, but others were pleased. They consider the Autobahn to be a symbol of their freedom. They were happy that they are still allowed to drive as fast as they want.
Santas attend summer school. Throughout the world, many department stores hire entertainers to play Santa Claus in December. Children take pictures with him and tell him what they want for Christmas. However, it takes practice to play Santa Claus well. So, some entertainers in London, the United Kingdom, attend summer classes to learn their craft. At Santa School, white-bearded students practice being Santa through role-play exercises. Plus, they learn the history of Saint Nick and his legendary costume. This year, Santa School added a safety class to prepare for Christmas during the coronavirus pandemic. The Santas learned about proper social distancing and practiced managing long lines of children. They also discussed the importance of face masks. The students at Santa School are passionate about their work. They said they felt inspired by the joy and magic of the upcoming holiday.
Supersonic jet to shorten air travel. A new supersonic jet is being planned for the future. The high-tech aircraft will greatly shorten travel time for international passengers. The jet is being built by Virgin Galactic, a sister firm of the British airline company Virgin Atlantic. The supersonic jet, which has yet to receive a name, will seat up to 19 passengers. It will be able to travel at 3,675 kilometers per hour, which is equivalent to Mach 3, or 3 times the speed of sound. Using this tremendous power, the plane will reach an altitude of over 18 kilometers. There, it will be able to fly from New York to London in just 90 minutes. On a normal jet plane, the same flight would take 7 hours. It will open up a new frontier in high-speed travel, a company spokesperson said. Virgin Galactic is working with Rolls-Royce on the engine for the aircraft. Though better known for luxurious automobiles, Rolls-Royce is also an expert in supersonic planes. In the past, it successfully built the propulsion system of the Concorde, which flew at Mach 2. Vending machine for used goods. These days, the online market for used goods has been growing. But despite its popularity, many people still find it awkward if they have to make the final exchange in person. The startup Berita came up with a clever solution to this problem. It introduced vending machines to buy and sell used goods. Berita's vending machine has slots in which sellers can place their goods. They also leave their phone number, product information, and price. Potential buyers can browse the items on display. If they purchase an item, they can take it home immediately. The company charges a 10% commission on every purchase. Also, it pays the seller 3 days after the sale in case of a defective product. Source of Van Gogh painting found. Art experts do not always know what inspires artists. For example, no one knew the inspiration for Vincent van Gogh's final masterpiece, Tree Roots. The landscape painting is incomplete, and Van Gogh died while making it in 1890. But now, art experts know the source of the inspiration. A historian from a Vincent van Gogh museum found a postcard from around 1905. The postcard shows an image of trees with tangled, twisty roots. The historian realized the image looked similar to tree roots and asked researchers for help. A team of researchers, including a nature expert, located the exact spot where the photo in the postcard was taken. It was in an area in France where Van Gogh lived during his final days. The researchers found that the location and the painting matched almost perfectly. So the 130-year-old mystery was now solved.
"3D printers make homes in 24 hours." Building new homes can take months. However, a California construction company promises new houses in 24 hours. It uses 3D printers to produce the components. The company prints homes with up to 3 bedrooms and multiple bathrooms. Ultimately, it will print buildings with numerous stories. The company also automates the construction process. For example, it uses robots to install insulation. For now, people still have to put on the roof. However, the 3D printers and robots will eventually take over that construction task as well. The houses cost between $115,000 and $285,000 depending on the size and amenities. However, that price is relatively affordable for the area. The technology also has great potential for the future. Communities could use it to make affordable or temporary housing.
Real-life Robinson Crusoe in Italy. Robinson Crusoe is an 18th century novel. It is about a man who becomes stranded on a deserted island. But believe it or not, there is a real-life Robinson Crusoe in Italy. Mauro Morandi became the sole inhabitant of Italy's Budeli Island by accident in 1981. A boating mishap left him stranded on the uninhabited island, and he decided to stay. Since then, the 81-year-old Italian has lived there alone. He is the island's caretaker. He tends the grounds and keeps tourists at bay. Although he is a hermit, Morandi has access to the internet. Through it, he often shares photographs of the picturesque paradise. The Vegetable Orchestra of Vienna. With vegetables, most people make meals, but the Vegetable Orchestra of Vienna makes music. For 24 years, the Austrian group has built instruments from veggies to perform music. First, orchestra members purchase fresh vegetables from a local farmer's market. In front of an audience, they carve the vegetables into musical instruments. They transform onions, ears of corn, bell peppers, tomatoes, pumpkins, and other vegetables into instruments. For example, squash can be a drum to keep the beat, and carrots can be carved into wind instruments. Then, the orchestra members blow into them to make sounds. When each instrument is ready, the orchestra plays an original song. What's more, the orchestra later uses the vegetables to make a meal to feed the hungry audience members. This orchestra gives new meaning to the expression, playing with your food.
Scientists save trapped whale. This summer, a team of scientists found a sperm whale in trouble. They worked together to save the life of one of the world's biggest animals. The scientists were inspecting sea turtle nesting sites near Italy's Aeolian Island. There, they came across the 10-meter-long whale trapped in a fishing net. They called the Coast Guard, which recruited specialized divers to help free the animal. The project took multiple days because the team needed to make sure the whale would not get too upset. Then, the divers worked together underwater to free the giant sea mammal from the net. It turned out the net was being illegally used. Reportedly, the Coast Guard has confiscated 100 kilometers of similar nets in the area so far this year. Now, they will increase security measures to protect marine wildlife such as this sperm whale. Man finds twin in old photo. Michael Koropis of the United Kingdom is interested in 19th century history and culture. Recently, the 24-year-old artist found a very interesting photograph from the 1900s. In the vintage photograph, the artist discovered a man who looked just like him. Seen in profile, the shape of the man's eyes, nose, and smile looked identical to his. "It was like looking at my twin," he said. The photograph spooked Koropis, who called the person his doppelganger. In myths, doppelgangers look identical to another person without being biologically related. Later, the artist had fun with the picture. He dressed up in costumes to look exactly like the man in the black and white photograph. Then, he posed for pictures. Side by side, the similarities in the two images are uncanny. Perhaps the artist has truly found his doppelganger.
Parrot beats Harvard students. African gray parrots are known to be especially smart birds. Recently, one of these birds went toe-to-toe with students at Harvard University. A 22-year-old parrot named Griffin was involved in an experiment. Along with Griffin, 21 Harvard students and 21 children took part in a visual memory game. Researchers placed different colored items in several cups. After showing the cups to the participants, the researchers turned the cups upside down on a table and shuffled them. Then, the participants were asked to remember which cups held the items. The participants were tested multiple times and in different ways. For example, they moved 2 cups one time, and then moved 4 cups the next time. Time after time, Griffin located the items more accurately than the people. He outperformed all 21 children and most of the Harvard students.
Teaching boxing in schools. In the early 2000s, many schools in the United Kingdom began teaching boxing to their students. Amateur boxing coaches visited the schools and trained both male and female students in the sport. Even now, over 1,000 schools in the country offer boxing classes. Indeed, there are some people who support teaching boxing in schools. They say that the sport is not just an excellent way for students to exercise and get in shape. It also improves their ability to focus and manage their emotions. For some students, it allows them to release stress in a healthy way. Also, the supporters say that students can learn to deal with violent behavior through boxing. For example, they can pick up skills to defend themselves in a fight if necessary. By learning these basic self-defense skills, the students will be better prepared to handle dangerous situations. However, some people oppose the teaching of boxing. They say that the sport could promote violent behavior in schools. Already, there are too many instances of students hitting and bullying their classmates. By having boxing classes, these students may mistakenly think that their actions are now acceptable. Furthermore, it is well known that boxing is a dangerous sport. It often causes serious injuries to professional and amateur boxers. A few countries have even banned the sport altogether. Given these risks, critics say it would be unwise to teach the sport to students. Online job interviews. Despite the coronavirus outbreak, companies continue to hire new employees for various positions. However, many firms have stopped asking job candidates to visit their office for personal interviews. Instead, they are choosing to conduct all interviews on the Internet. In fact, some human resource (HR) directors say conducting online interviews saves companies time and money. What's more, it allows them to screen more potential employees and even meet candidates who may not have been able to come to the office. This way, companies can expand their pool of candidates and always choose the best person for the job. Some job seekers say online interviews help them to be better prepared. They can focus on the interview without worrying about external factors such as transportation. Also, they feel more relaxed because they can choose the time and the place. This way, they are able to show their best side to potential employers. Not everyone is in favor of online interviews, however. Some critics say that there are many technical difficulties that can occur when interviewing online. For example, there may be problems with the internet connection, or the candidate's microphone and camera may be of poor quality. These conditions could hurt the chances of some job seekers while giving an unfair advantage to others. Furthermore, some interviewers and interviewees find online interviews to be cold and limiting. Job candidates usually have many questions about their potential employers and the workplace. Meanwhile, employers learn a lot about job candidates by evaluating body language and other social cues. However, these things would be hard to do through a computer screen.
Genetically modified foods. Genetically modified foods, or GM foods, have become a part of many people's lives. Produced from plants and animals, they have been altered through genetic engineering for various purposes. Some are modified to grow quicker or in different environments. Others are changed to increase their size or improve their taste. However, there are those who worry about society's dependence on GM foods. These skeptics say we still do not understand the effects of consuming. There may be negative consequences. These skeptics say we still do not understand the effects of consuming GM foods regularly. There may be negative consequences to our health that we may not be aware of. So they say we should not take GM foods for granted before further research is done. Also, these opponents say that raising GM crops and animals could have a negative impact on our environment. They say that these genetically altered plants and creatures could escape from their farms and fields. If these plants and animals mix with their natural counterparts, they could end up changing the genetic makeup of the natural world and threaten its existence. On the other hand, there are those who say that the benefits outweigh the risks when it comes to GM foods. They argue that scientists are able to improve the taste and nutritional value of crops and animals through genetic engineering. Also, scientific studies have not found any health risks associated with GM foods. Because of this, we are able to enjoy a greater variety of foods that maximize their health benefits. Furthermore, the supporters of GM foods say that genetic engineering allows a greater amount of crops to grow at a faster rate. By increasing this output, governments may be able to provide enough food to a larger number of people. This may help to solve food shortages and even become a means to end world hunger.
Study highlights generosity of humans. Given all the problems in the world, it is easy to assume that humans are inherently selfish beings. A recent study, however, shows that our natural inclination may actually be to act generously towards each other. The study was conducted online by sociologists at The Ohio State University in the United States. The participants took part in a system that allowed them to share points with each other. The points had monetary value to the participants, meaning that giving would cost them something. Then, the researchers created different scenarios in which the participants would be motivated in different ways. In one scenario, the participants would be motivated to give points to someone else in exchange for receiving points from that person. In other words, they would be giving something in order to get back something. Other scenarios, however, measured whether participants would be motivated to do something nice without directly benefiting from their action. For example, they were given the opportunity to give points to someone whom they witnessed being generous to a third person. Or else, after someone gives points to them, they were given the chance to then pay it forward to someone else. Prior to the study, the sociologists had assumed that the first scenario would result in the most points exchanged. They believed the participants would mostly be motivated by the promise of getting something back. They also thought that the participants would be less inclined to reward a third person just for the sake of generosity. However, it turned out that altruism was as big a motivating factor as selfishness. In other words, the participants were just as willing to distribute points in scenarios in which they received no reward in return.
Face masks with a smile. During the coronavirus pandemic, wearing a face mask remains an essential habit throughout the world. However, it can feel impersonal to talk to people when half of your face is covered. One company in Belgium came up with a fun and creative solution for this problem. It developed a photo booth called the Cheese Box. First, the cheese box takes a picture of a person's bare face. Then, it prints the person's lower face onto a cloth face mask. So, when people wear the cheese box mask, their entire face seems to be visible. Of course, the illusion is imperfect, and there is no movement of the nose and mouth. Nonetheless, the funny fabric masks have already made many Belgians smile. It's much better and warmer than the usual anonymous surgical mask, said one customer.
World of Warcraft comes to life. The online role-playing game World of Warcraft is famous around the world. Even though it is 16 years old, it still has a multitude of fans. Each year, groups of fans in the Czech Republic gather for a festival to celebrate the game. The festival is a cosplay event, which means the fans dress up as characters from the game, such as elves, knights, and shamans. Then they go to a forest to recreate the game in the real world. In the woods, they played a live-action version of World of Warcraft and took part in other activities related to their favorite game. Due to the coronavirus, there were a lot fewer participants this year. However, those who did participate took precautions while thoroughly enjoying themselves. "We are just happy that the festival is happening," said one of the event's organizers.
Dogs and owners compete in race. A group of dog lovers in Croatia recently participated in an annual race with their beloved pets. The athletic dog owners ran and swam with their furry friends of various breeds and colors. The athletes and their dogs swam from one shore to the next. When they were back on land again, they sprinted to the finish line. In total, the race took about 30 minutes. It was mostly for fun, but the winning team did receive a medal and one free night at a pet-friendly camping resort. Beyond the finish line, there were additional activities. For example, there was an ice cream eating contest for the dogs. According to the organizers, this annual event is held to encourage pet ownership.
Young ballet dancer gets scholarship. A viral video of a young ballet dancer recently became popular on the internet. Now, the talented boy has received a scholarship to study overseas. Umsoma Madu is an 11-year-old student at a small dance academy in Nigeria. One day in the summer, the academy made a video of Madu practicing pirouettes outdoors happily and skillfully. The video quickly received over 200,000 views on YouTube. It also grabbed the attention of a prestigious dance school in the United States. The school offered Madu a scholarship to study ballet there. Already, he has begun virtual classes with the school. Then, next year, he will fly there to study in person. Madhu is naturally thrilled by the opportunity to study abroad. Hopefully, he can develop his talents and share his love of ballet with the rest of the world.
Dogs sniff out coronavirus. A dog's most powerful sense is its sense of smell. Dogs can even smell the scent of diseases in people's sweat. For this reason, some dogs in Helsinki, Finland, received special training. Now, they can detect people who might have the coronavirus. The dogs work with their trainers in an airport in Helsinki. First, passengers dab a cloth on their underarms and put the cloth in a container. The dogs sniff the cloth and bark if they detect the virus. Then, these passengers must take a proper swab test before they can board the flight. This method could identify potential coronavirus patients quickly and efficiently. Also, it could reduce the number of swab tests, which are expensive. In the future, the Finnish government plans to dispatch the dogs to other places, including hospitals and nursing homes. Artificial intelligence gets creative. In the past decades, there have been great advances made in artificial intelligence. In fact, computers have surpassed humans in their ability to perform many different types of tasks. Still, most people believe that true creativity is something that can only be done by flesh and blood. For better or worse, that may be changing. In 2019, a gallery in the United Kingdom held an exhibition for an unusual artist. All the paintings, drawings, and sculptures in the show were created by a humanoid robot named Ida. Ida was the idea of gallery director Aidan Meller, who worked with a team of scientists at Oxford University. The robot is composed of body parts similar to a mannequin, as well as a camera and a mechanical arm. With the camera, Ida analyzes various objects in front of her. The data is then entered into a sophisticated AI program, which uses different algorithms to create visual interpretations. Using her mechanical arm, the robot maneuvers different artistic tools to produce the artworks. The creations of Ida, who is named after the scientist Ada Lovelace, are diverse and highly sophisticated. They include delicate pencil portraits, colorful abstract paintings, and large clay statues. The robot has even starred in video pieces in which she recites poems she has generated based on existing literature. The exhibition questions our relationship with technology and the natural world, the gallery director said through a statement. As a humanoid robot, Ida is an art object in herself. Besides Ida, there have been a number of AI artists producing paintings and holding solo exhibitions. Some of their artworks have sold for hundreds of thousands of dollars. Building walks to a new place. In November, Chinese engineers gave a 5-story building in Shanghai the ability to walk. Amazingly, they used robots to move the building from one place to another. The 85-year-old elementary school was designated as a historic building. However, the city government wanted to construct a commercial center in its place. So, the engineers attached nearly 200 walking robots beneath the building. Then, the machines walked the building to its new location. The robots looked like feet that moved up and down in a forward motion. The journey took multiple days, but it was a success. It's like giving crutches to the building so that it can stand up and walk, one engineer explained. It is common to use flatbed trucks to move small buildings like mobile homes. Maybe in the future, we may get used to seeing walking buildings as well. Restaurant built for chipmunks. Angela Hansberger, a food writer in the United States, recently built a unique restaurant. Given her profession, opening a restaurant may seem to make sense. However, this establishment was not for human customers. It all started when a relative gave Hansberger a toy picnic table as a garden decoration. One day, Hansberger saw a chipmunk sitting at the table just as a person would. When she gave the chipmunk nuts from a pie, it casually ate them at the table. Hansberger then went a step further by creating small plated meals for the chipmunk. Using nuts, grains, and fruit, she fashioned miniature hamburgers and sushi rolls. She even positioned the table in a miniature restaurant set. Now, Hansberger and her friend enjoy meals together every day at the Chipmunk restaurant.
Nikola Tesla. Nowadays, Nikola Tesla's name is synonymous with Tesla Motors, the global corporation renowned for developing innovative electric cars. Indeed, the company's name pays tribute to a great inventor who changed our relationship to electricity. Born to a Serbian family in Croatia in 1856, Tesla showed remarkable abilities in mathematics and science as a child. He decided to pursue a career in electrical engineering, and in his 20s, he was already coming up with prototypes for electrical components. Unable to find anyone in Europe who was interested in his ideas, Tesla left for New York in 1884. He would spend most of his life in the bustling metropolis, later receiving U.S. citizenship. In New York, Tesla went to work for Thomas Edison, the legendary inventor of the light bulb and many other electrical devices. This employment was short-lived, however, and in fact, Tesla later became a direct rival to Edison. At the time, electrical equipment, including that of Edison, ran on direct current, DC, or electricity that runs continually in a single direction. Tesla, however, came up with a device called the current induction motor, which successfully utilized alternating current, AC. This invention allowed electricity to easily change between voltage levels and travel over longer distances. By the end of the 19th century, Tesla became a prolific inventor, contributing to numerous fields and holding hundreds of patents. He invented the Tesla coil, which later became widely used in radio and television sets. He also made pivotal discoveries in radio waves, X-ray, remote control, and wireless transmission of electrical energy. These achievements are why many consider the late Serbian-American who passed away in 1943 to be one of the greatest inventors of his time. Paid promotions by influencers. Influencers can be found on social media throughout the world. They create and post content that shows their expertise and knowledge or is simply enjoyable to watch. Through their activities, influencers have the power to affect their followers' purchasing decisions. Because of this, many companies pay top influencers to promote their products through sponsored posts. Some people, however, think that influencers should not get paid to promote commercial products. They say that many young people, and even adults, look up to influencers as role models. So, using this social media power to sell products would be a breach of trust. It could lead to many internet users becoming skeptical of all influencers. These people also say that it is becoming increasingly difficult to distinguish between real and sponsored posts. Many social media uploads seem to be sincere, but they are actually paid advertisements in disguise. Having influencers sell space on their accounts to advertisers makes it even harder to tell the difference. Other people, however, think it's fine for influencers to be involved in paid promotions. They say that influencers are active on social media for various reasons, but they also do it to make money. So, they have every right to use their popularity to promote commercial products. They should not be criticized for utilizing their social media accounts to earn their livelihood. Furthermore, these people point out that influencers are not deceiving anyone when they promote products. The sponsored posts are usually clearly marked as paid advertisements. So, they are easy to differentiate from authentic ones posted by the same influencers. This way, people can choose to avoid being exposed to the ads.
App helps to stop nightmares. Do you suffer from too many nightmares? A new application may one day help you with this problem. Nightwear is a new app for smartphones. It connects with a smartwatch to monitor the sleep patterns of the wearer. It monitors body movements and heart rates. There are already similar smartphone apps that track people while they are sleeping. This app, however, can detect when a person is having a nightmare. Then, the smartwatch gently shakes to wake the person up. Over time, the app learns the wearer's sleep habits and eventually recognizes the onset of a nightmare. However, nightwear is not readily available for everyone. Generally, the app is for people with severe sleep disorders. Because of this, people will need a prescription from their doctors to download it. Teen extends record for longest hair. Nilanshi Patel is a teenager from India. She holds the Guinness World Record for the longest hair on a teenager. Patel first set the record back in 2018 with hair that was 190 centimeters long. In other words, the length of her hair was greater than her height. Patel continued to let her hair grow. This year, just before turning 18, the record holder measured her hair again. Now it is 2 meters long, which is a new world record. Patel began letting her hair grow long when she was 6 years old. She said it was because she had received a bad haircut back then. Afterwards, Patel vowed not to cut her hair again. Now that Patel is an adult, she said she might try to set similar records in the adult category. Or she might finally get a haircut.
Retailer fires robot workers. Walmart is a multinational corporation with thousands of stores in the United States as well as across the world. Recently, the news media reported on a notable decision made by the retail company regarding its robot workers. In 2017, Walmart introduced autonomous robots to some of its U.S. stores. These robots are very tall and move like self-driving cars. Equipped with scanners, they were used to monitor inventory in 500 stores. The robots roamed the aisles of the Walmart stores and kept track of the different items on the shelves. This way, they made sure that the goods were properly stocked and available for purchase. Many believed that Walmart's automation experiment was going smoothly. Then, in November, Walmart made an unexpected announcement. The retailer said it would cancel its contract with Bossa Nova Robotics, the company that provides the inventory robots. In other words, Walmart decided to fire some of its robot workers. Walmart representatives said that the plans changed due to several reasons. Mainly, they realized that their human employees were more effective than the robots at the job of keeping inventory. This has especially been the case during the coronavirus pandemic, as online orders increased dramatically. Human workers moved fluidly throughout the stores as they tracked and organized products to fill the orders. Also, human employees were better at recognizing and handling sudden changes in the system. Robots do very well in standardized environments, said one robotics expert. But some environments have lots of products and are disorganized. In those situations, people are much more efficient. Walmart is expected to keep around other robot workers that do menial jobs like scrubbing floors. But for jobs involving inventory, humans prove to be the better option.
Library book returned after 100 years. Most overdue library books make it back to the library sooner or later. But recently, a library in Canada received an overdue book extremely late. In fact, it had been overdue for about 100 years. The book in question was a copy of Martin Chuzzlewit, a novel by Charles Dickens. An anonymous person returned the old book to the Fergus Library in Ontario, Canada. The document in the book said the late fee was 2 cents per day when the original borrower took it. Therefore, the total fine came to about $730. The librarians did not seek the identity of the person who returned the book. Instead, they put the book on display to memorialize it. They found it interesting to have a connection to the library's past.
Pizza made with 254 types of cheese. Usually, a pizza is made with 1 or 2 types of cheese. Recently, however, a French chef used hundreds of varieties to set a new world record. Chef Benoit Bruel rolled out the pizza crust to a standard 30 centimeters and added tomato sauce. Then, he added more than half a kilogram of cheese. In total, Bruel used 254 types of the dairy product. It was a new Guinness World Record for the most varieties of cheese on a pizza. The cheeses included salty goat cheeses, rich cow cheeses, and various specialty cheeses. Each cheese had a distinct taste, from sweet to savory. Bruel said he took up the challenge to bring the record back to his country. He thought it was important for a French person to hold this title because many fabulous kinds of cheese come from France. Tourist bus travels on glacier. A tourism company in Iceland has introduced a rather unusual experience. People who crave adventure can now hop aboard a bus to travel across a glacier. The modified passenger bus has a powerful engine and 8 thick wheels to help it drive on the icy surface. It takes small groups to see the colossal glacier, which is rapidly melting. The glacier developed about 2,500 years ago, and some parts of the ice are at least 500 years old. Unfortunately, it has shrunk in size by 250 square kilometers in the past 130 years. According to the company, the bus tour does not have a considerable impact on the glacier. Rather, global warming and heat from nearby volcanoes are causing it to melt. The glacier could one day melt entirely, said one of the travelers. So, this trip feels really emotional. Feeding stray animals. In most cities around the world, it is common to see stray dogs and cats. Unfortunately, these street animals have no owner, and so are forced to fend for themselves. Many people feel sorry for these stray animals and regularly put out food for them. Some people are in support of feeding stray animals in this manner. They say that it is tremendously difficult for these homeless dogs and cats to survive on their own. This is doubly the case during the cold winter months. So, the least we can do is to give the poor animals a little something to eat whenever we can. These people also point out that stray dogs and cats could become dangerous if they become too hungry. They could hunt wildlife or even attack people out of desperation. If they are regularly fed by people who care about them, they are more likely to remain tame and not cause harm. Others, however, argue against regularly feeding stray dogs and cats. They point out that these unfortunate animals are not being properly cared for. So, they are liable to spread diseases to the entire neighborhood. Also, there is the risk of sudden attacks that can harm other animals and even people. Furthermore, these critics say that people might feel better by leaving some food out for stray dogs and cats. But the reality is that the problem will remain, and the animals will continue to suffer after their meal. So, these people argue the best thing to do is to take the stray animals to a shelter, where they can get real help. Photo collage shows different colors of moon. What is the color of the moon? The answer to this question depends on a great many things. Recently, NASA released an interesting image that showed just how colorful Earth's satellite can be. The image was created by Marcella Giulia Pace, an elementary school teacher and amateur astronomer in Italy. For 10 years, Pace took photos of the full moon from different locations across her country. She then selected 48 photographs and arranged them into a collage, which was then shared by NASA online. The images of the moon in the collage run across the full spectrum of colors. They include blood red, faint blue, intense orange, and deep yellow. There is also a wide variety of moons showing subtle changes in gray and brown. According to NASA, there are various reasons for the startling differences in the moon's color. For instance, a red or yellow moon is seen because certain particles in the atmosphere scatter and remove the blue light before it reaches the eyes. This usually occurs near the horizon when the image of the moon has to travel farther through the atmosphere. A blue moon, which is rarer, happens when other particles enter the atmosphere and block the red light. These particles mostly come from ashes from a forest fire or a volcanic eruption. Also, during a total lunar eclipse, the moon may turn faint red instead of going completely dark. This is because the moon is in Earth's shadow, but some light from the sun is reaching the satellite after being refracted around the Earth. Interestingly, the real color of the moon is gray tinged with brown. This can be seen in space or on the moon's surface away from the effects of Earth's atmosphere. "120-year-old chocolates discovered." Recently, researchers at the Australian National Library made an intriguing discovery. It happened while they were examining the personal belongings of Banjo Paterson, a famous Australian poet from the early 1900s. The researchers were sifting through boxes of Paterson's old papers. They unearthed a tin container hidden in one of the boxes. Inside the unopened tin were delicious and uneaten Cadbury chocolates that were about 120 years old. The researchers found that the tin was given to army troops stationed in South Africa in 1899. The face of Queen Victoria of England was printed on the outside. Paterson was working as a journalist in South Africa back then. So, he probably traded something with a soldier to acquire the chocolates. However, he forgot about them after returning to Australia. There was quite an interesting smell when they were unwrapped, one researcher said. early humans may have hibernated. Until recently, it was believed that only certain mammal species, such as squirrels, bats, and bears, could hibernate. But now, a new study suggests that early humans may have done so as well. This study, published in the December edition of L'Anthropologie journal, found that members of an extinct human species may have been able to hibernate through the winter. The authors of the study, Antonis Barciocas and Juan Luis Arzuaga, reached their conclusion after carefully examining skeletal remains found in the Cima de los Huesos cave in Spain. The cave is a UNESCO World Heritage filled with early human fossils that date back hundreds of thousands of years. Using close-up photography, microscopes, and CT scans, the two anthropologists inspected the bones for signs of health and disease. What they found were signs of damage that was likely caused by vitamin D deficiency from lack of sunlight. In addition, they also found evidence of yearly growth spurts in the bones of teenagers that seemed to be linked to the seasons. Taken together, these signs indicate that the species may have tried to hibernate in dark caves during winter as a survival strategy. Hibernation is a way that some animals deal with the difficulties of winter. Because food is scarce during this time, it is important for these animals to conserve their energy. Consequently, they spend most of the winter asleep, using stored fat for energy until spring arrives. The hypothesis of hibernation is consistent with the genetic evidence and the fact that the Cima de los Huesos hominins lived during a glacial period, wrote Barciocas and Arzuaga. So far, some of the bones have been traced to Homo heidelbergensis, an early human ancestor who lived during the Pleistocene era between 770,000 and 126,000 years ago. However, many questions still remain regarding these mysterious hibernating humans. Nostradamus. The name Nostradamus is known far and wide throughout the world. Some people believe that the French mystic from the 16th century was able to see far into the future and predict major events. Nostradamus was born as Michel de Nostradam in 1503. During his childhood, his grandfather taught him astrology, introducing him to the idea that the stars in the sky could influence human lives. In university, the Frenchman studied medicine, and after receiving a physician's license in 1525, he officially changed his name to Nostradamus. At that time, Europe was struggling with an outbreak of the bubonic plague, one of the deadliest epidemics in human history. For the next 30 years, he traveled throughout France and Italy treating plague victims. Later in life, Nostradamus moved away from medicine and devoted himself to the occult. He spent hours in meditation, leading to intense visions that became the basis for his famous prophecies. In 1550, Nostradamus published his first almanac. While almanacs were already popular with the public, Nostradamus's book gained attention for its rich astrological information and detailed descriptions of his visions. Nostradamus quickly gained fame as an astrologer and a prolific writer. In total, his almanacs and other books contained over 6,000 predictions, some of them alluding to events taking place 2,000 years later. He also published the book Prophecies which collected most of his major long-term predictions. Nostradamus passed away in 1566 at the age of 62. However, his fame as a seer has only grown in the centuries since his death. Believers of Nostradamus say that parts of prophecies correlate to numerous major events in history, including the French Revolution, the rise of Adolf Hitler, and the development of the nuclear bomb. Even today, some people delve into the pages of the 16th century books to see what they can learn about the coming year.
Pompeii and ancient Roman food culture. Located along the southwestern coast of Italy, the ancient city of Pompeii is a truly remarkable place. Once a prosperous Roman port city, Pompeii was completely buried in ash during a sudden volcanic eruption in 79 AD. Nearly 2 millennia later, the city is known today for its well-preserved frescoes and other relics offering a unique insight into ancient Roman life. Recent archaeological investigations at Pompeii have led to some extraordinary discoveries. One of the most captivating is a beautifully painted ancient food and drink stall. Known as a thermopolium in Latin, the counter was a place where ancient Roman street food was sold. On the front of the counter, a brightly colored fresco depicts a nymph riding a seahorse. According to archaeologists, the illustration may represent the owner's logo or trademark. Additionally, the side of the counter depicts various animals, including ducks and roosters. These images were likely meant to advertise the ingredients included in the meals. Lastly, a series of deep round holes can be seen lining the countertop. In these holes, vendors stored large terracotta jars filled with hot, tasty food. Chemical analysis of these jars has revealed traces of beef, pork, goat, fish, and even snails. Despite living nearly 2,000 years ago, ancient Romans had a strikingly modern food culture. For instance, the majority of Romans ate 3 meals a day. They had bread, fruit, and cheese in the morning, along with eggs and vegetables at midday. And just like today, dinner options were largely dependent on social class. Wealthy Romans held multi-course banquets prepared by trained chefs. They also drank wine and used utensils such as forks and spoons. Meanwhile, poor Romans typically purchased ready-made meals from taverns and market stalls. Much like modern times, these establishments catered to laborers who were too exhausted to cook after a hard day's work. Man buys fake genie lamp. Recently, a man in India reported an unusual crime. He said that he was tricked into buying a fake genie lamp. The victim of the crime was a doctor who loved fairy tales. He was approached by 3 people who told an elaborate story about a genie lamp. The trio said that the genie in the lamp would grant the doctor's wishes. But of course, the whole thing was a scam. One trickster even dressed up like a genie and visited the man. The poor doctor became convinced that the genie lamp was magical. He paid the 3 criminals a large sum of money for the item. Later, the doctor came to his senses and reported the fraud to the police. 2 of the criminals were captured, but the 3rd man is still at large. Still pen pals after 70 years. Jill Stretton of Australia and Kathy Alexander of Scotland became pen pals in 1950. When Stretton was 12 years old, a family friend gave her Alexander's address. The pair became fast friends. Now, 70 years later, the octogenarians remain pen pals. They send each other letters, photographs, and postcards. In their letters, they write about the ups and downs of life. They share everything from dreams and goals to achievements and milestones. Stretton and Alexander finally met in person in 1982, more than 30 years after they first corresponded by mail. They also tried more modern forms of keeping in touch, including phone calls and video chats via computers. However, the written word remains their favorite means of communication. Therefore, they still send handwritten letters after all this time. From time to time, they also send emails.